This week here on Seahawks Today, we are battling the Browns Report, hosted by Matthew Peterson. And to start off this battle, we actually took their studio. Now we're going to give them the business and win this sub-battle this week. The Seahawks already beat the Browns earlier this year, so why not beat them off the field and show why we have the best fans in the National Football League and better than those dirty Brown fans. Not to mention Matthew Peterson, total fraud. He doesn't even like dogs. He pretends like he's the leader of the dog pound and he hates dogs. So let's win the sub battle this week. Let's start the week on a high note and we'll get started with today's show. Could Jalen Hurts be headed to Seattle? Welcome into this edition of Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we are talking about the latest report from ProFootballTalk's Mike Florio about the possibility of Hurts coming to Seattle in a blockbuster move, as Florio is suggesting that Hurts could be looking for a fresh start. And the Seahawks, who will have a new head coach in 2024, could also be looking for a fresh start at the quarterback position. Now, more from Florio. He said that Jalen Hurts could be upset about the recent firing that the Philadelphia Eagles made of offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. And in case you did not know, Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson were very close. Brian Johnson, before he was OC this past year, was quarterbacks coach for Philadelphia. They had a great relationship and a lot of success, and was credited in large part to the development of Jalen Hurts over the last couple of years to be the second-team All-Pro quarterback that he is. Here's more from Florio on a potential move. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying it should. I'm saying it could. He could say, I want out. You can throw the Seahawks in as well, depending on who the next head coach is. You got Geno Smith, where you have an opportunity to get out of the contract, and you could bring in Jalen Hurts if the new head coach decides, I think we can make things very special here with Jalen Hurts if he wants out of Philly and needs a fresh start. Now, I'll say this. You look at Jalen Hurts, and he recently signed a huge contract last offseason, right? 5 years, $255 million, okay? I doubt firing one coordinator is going to be the end-all, be-all that says with Jalen Hurts, I want out. I want out of here. To me, I would be very shocked and surprised if that ends up being the case. Jalen Hurts, what he's done over the last couple of seasons. We mentioned an All-Pro selection last year, helped lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl appearance. And even in a down year this year, he still set a significant record as he tied the NFL record for most rushing touchdowns in a single season. And you talk about some of the best young quarterbacks in the National Football League, Jalen Hurts is going to be right up there among the best of them at this juncture. Got a bright future ahead and really just getting started with things. Now, we'll dive more into Jalen Hurts and look into this possibility of what would take. But I want to hear from you first. Should the Seahawks trade for Jalen Hurts? Type T for trade, P for pass. Weigh in on our pinned comment today and let us know what you think. This episode of Seahawks Today is sponsored by Tushy. Deep down, we all know that using toilet paper alone leaves nasty and smelly bacteria behind in our butts. Tushy has finally made number 2 cleanup more hygienic and better for the environment. You now can have a fresh stream of water, the same water as your sink or shower, to clean up your bum after every poop. Tushy's bidets are easy to set up on any toilet. In under 10 minutes, you can set up your at-home bidet that will change your life forever. I'm not even kidding. This product is life-changing. And if we're being honest here, it feels pretty good, too. For a limited time, our viewers get 10% off their entire order at HelloTushy.com. Go to HelloTushy.com and use code CHAT for 10% off. It's time to get rid of those skid marks once and for all. I love my Tushy. And it's great knowing not only am I taking better care of myself, but I'm also helping the environment. Toilet paper is expensive nowadays. Do yourself a favor by saving money and being more confident and clean with the Tushy. Get that fresh, out-of-shower feeling at HelloTushy.com. For a limited time, our viewers get 10% off your entire order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your order at HelloTushy.com with promo code CHAT. It's time to back that ass up with confidence. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Back to Jalen Hurts. When you make a potential trade, obviously you take on the contract, and we showed you earlier it's a lot of money, right? Well, Jalen Hurts' contract is a unique one for a lot of reasons, but one in particular. He has a no-trade clause. So it's not like the Eagles can just decide on a whim, you know what, we're going to move on from Jalen Hurts. This has to be a mutual thing of Jalen Hurts not only saying he wants out, but then has to say, yes, I want to go play for the Seattle Seahawks. And as we told you, it seems kind of bizarre that he could be upset about just one coordinator change. But you do have to wonder then, is there smoke in Philly? When we hear about all these reports, when things start to add up, then it all makes sense. Seattle fans know firsthand of the Russell Wilson situation a couple years ago, where eventually it was obvious for everybody, right? I don't know if there's enough smoke yet, but it is interesting when you dive into this further and read into what the Philadelphia Inquirer had to say recently from Jeff McClain about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Team sources said the Eagles want their franchise quarterback to open himself up a little more in the locker room. Players like and respect Hurts. The team doesn't have to worry about him off the field. The Eagles want him to be authentic to himself, but they also need him to not isolate himself as much when a more outward leadership style is necessary, especially when the going gets tough. Now, my counterpoint, my pitch for Seattle, okay, there's a whole lot less attention on what's going on in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest compared to Philadelphia in the Northeast and on the East Coast and everything, right? We know Seattle. We know our city. It's an isolated environment. We're kind of separate from the rest of the world in a sense, right? Rains a lot. We kind of keep to ourselves. I think you look at Jalen Hurts, and he would be more than welcome to do things his way and to lead by example. Doesn't have to be the loudest voice in the room, but has to carry himself the right way. And that's what Jalen Hurts does, in my opinion. Now, there's two questions I have when it comes to the possibility of Jalen Hurts. Number one, Hurts needs to get fully healthy. He wasn't at all this season, especially in the second half of the season. Will he take the time to properly recover and get back on track? That's question number one. Question number two, his style of play. We know that Jalen Hurts loves to run the football, and he's one of the best running quarterbacks in the league, although don't let that fool you to think that he's not a good passer, because he is. He's got arm strength, and he's very accurate. But can that style of play last him long-term for many years to come? Because history tells us that when you talk about these mobile quarterbacks and a guy that is now getting into his prime and all that, right? This next portion of his career, is that going to stay? Is there staying power? Is that going to last long-term? And that, my friends, I don't know at the moment. You look at the statistics. In what was a down year for Jalen Hurts this past year, right? 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Still had a completion percentage of 65% this year. You look at the year prior, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,700 yards. I mean, we've seen him take the steps in the right direction. Considerably better from what he was in 2020. And I see a guy, I've been following him closely since his days with Alabama and Oklahoma, and he's a world of a difference better than what he was in college. So for me, that's my optimism with Jalen Hurts is I've seen a guy that's put the work in, that cares, that is going the extra mile. And to me, that's a huge positive. And the running ability, I mean, sure, it might slow down eventually, but I mean, it's as good as what you can ask for. 2,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry in his career. I mean, it's been lethal what we've seen. Now, the price tag. This is where it isn't cheap. And this is where we kind of hold the brakes a bit, right? it's not cheap at all. I think it's going to take at least 3 first-round picks if you were going to pull off a trade to bring in Jalen Hurts. And you look at this Seahawks team, the holes that they have, although the future's bright and there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about this team, you can't mortgage your future. You can't give up 3 first-round picks. Somebody might be willing to pay that, but I don't see the Seahawks being in a situation to give that up. Even if they want Jalen Hurts, even if Jalen Hurts tomorrow says, trade me to the Seattle Seahawks, 3 first-round picks, I think that's what it'd take, and I think that's a bit too far. I just don't see this happening at this point. And then there's one other factor. What do you do with Geno Smith? Whoever the new head coach is, what do they want to do with Geno Smith? And obviously we won't know the answer to that question until a coach is hired. But to me, that's another factor in all this. If the new head coach is comfortable with Geno Smith, then you'll give Geno another year. If the new head coach makes up their mind that they want to start fresh and they want to have a new quarterback in, then I think you deserve the right to give them that chance to pick their guy if that's the direction they choose. So we'll see. What about Geno in this equation? Will Geno Smith return to Seattle next season? Let me know what you think. Y for yes, N for no. Weigh in the comments section and predict the chances of Geno Smith ending up back in Seattle next year. Appreciate you joining us here on Seahawks Today. Subscribe now to the channel for the latest happenings on your favorite team throughout the entire offseason. Let's beat the Browns report and that dog hater, Matthew Peterson, in our sub battle this week. Sub it up, and we'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.